Fireworks are coming, the drums run tumming everywhere. So prepare, say a prayer.
Welcome back. My name's Jim Kruse, and I'm an Army veteran, served from 1967 to 1970. I deployed to Korea from 1968 to 1969 and came home in 1970. I also work with a group called Kruse's Krew that sends care packages to our troops overseas and afloat. 22 years ago, on September 11th, 2001, America changed forever. We were at peace. Life was good. Nothing could touch us. Suddenly, that morning, a plane crashed into the World Trade Center. Terrible mistake. What was the pilot thinking about? Then the next plane crashed into the tower. Oh my God, what was happening? Then another crashed into the Pentagon. We were at war. Then over Shanksville, Pennsylvania, American patriots realized that they were being attacked by terrorists. They fought back with these stirring words, "Let's roll." We were stunned. Not here, not now. Why? How could this happen to us? We were America. But it did, and we would never change and be the same again. The terrorists who did this wanted to change us. They did. Every house sported an American flag. Every recruiting station was filled. We were Americans, and we will find you, and we will make you pay. 22 years later, we have 7,050 servicemen and women who have paid the ultimate sacrifice. Where are the flags? Where's the love for this country and what we stand for? Does it take a plane crashing into a building for us to be American patriots again? My guest today is Noel Rivera, and he was raised in Chicago, resides there still. He enlisted in 1989 in a delayed entry program in the United States Navy. He began boot camp in 1990 at Recruit Training Command in Orlando, Florida. He completed electronics training in Orlando and back here in Great Lakes in Illinois. He specialized in navigational radar training in San Diego, California in 1992. He reported to his ship, the Stephen W. Groves, FFG 29. He spent 6 months enforcing embargoes in the Middle East and enforced UN sanctions in Haiti and the Red Sea. He was also a member of the shipboarding team, which boarded 200 ships. He has also worked at Argonne Laboratory on advanced photon source, and he now lives in Chicago again, working at the Metropolitan Water Reclamation District in Controls and Instrumentation District. Welcome back.
Thank you, sir. Thanks for having me here.
I'm familiar with Army basic training. What's Navy boot camp like?
Navy boot camp, well, I went to Orlando, so Orlando's actually now closed. Right before, back then, there was 3 boot camps, and Orlando was the one for more of the advanced electronics, because those schools were down there, the nuclears and stuff like that. So for us, at least, that was a bit more of a mind game. It was physical, because it was Orlando, Florida in the summertime. We had the heat, the humidity, the rains, and so that made PT fun. You know, they made us into what they called sugar cookies, because you had sand pits in front of your barracks, and you didn't. And when it was time to do some PT, they made you do the PT in the sand, and then you were covered. You look like a sugar cookie.
PT is physical training, and believe me, it's exercise.
But Orlando was, like I said, it was more for the advanced electronics, because that's where they were all located at that time. So it was more of a mind game, I thought. It was physical, like most branches, but they wanted to test your mental strength, because you're going to be in different areas. Down there was also the nuclear programs, so they had to test those guys as well. A lot of them I respect and I still stay in touch with.
That's great. That's great. Your advanced training was electronics, specializing in navigation. Yeah. Tell me some interesting things about your training, what you learned, and what you did.
And that was interesting. The reason I picked the Navy is that back in the 80s and in the early 90s, I knew a lot of friends that went to technical school. And so electronics was something I was being looking forward to. And of course, look at the day and age now, electronics and technology has advanced greatly. So that's why I picked that field. When I was going through there, I had a different chance of going through like communications or radar. During my time in Great Lakes, you went through both phases. There was the radio phase, the comm phase, and the radar. And I enjoyed radar because it was a bit more challenging. And so I enjoyed that and everything I learned from there. You know, it's just being alone with some of the equipment there, because communications was you're working with a lot of people, a bit more stressful. So is radar, because that's what gets you home. You know, if you can't navigate your way in the middle of the ocean, then where are you going to go?
And I believe the radar towers are up on the top of the mast at the top of the ship, right?
Yes, there's one of them. Usually the radars are higher. The higher you are, the bigger the view. Just like if you're on top of the Sears Tower, which I still call it that, and you look further away, you can see across.
Now, what was that like, climbing up there with and I know sometimes the sea's calm, but not always.
Right.
So it has to be kind of a challenge being up there with the ship rocking back and forth in the sea.
I've only been up there like twice actually underway. Most of the time was imports, but the time I was underway, we had to, because we had a problem with the radar. So of course, we have what's called guide wires, and some of those got in the way one time. And so it was not this isn't something that always happens. So it was just an unusual event. So I had to go up there, and it wasn't too bad as a rocking. You know, I had my sea legs, meaning that I can balance. I didn't have to be wobbly with the ship rolls. It's just, I don't know, something that sailors developed. And so when I was up there, I did my repairs, so it wasn't too bad, but it was actually quite calm. You know, when you're up there alone, you can just feel the breeze, and it's just, wow, it's like a Jimmy Buffett song.
Just imagine climbing the Sears Tower with your ship rolling out beyond you. You reported to sea duty aboard the USS Stephen W. Groves, a guided missile frigate.
That's right.
Tell us about the ship, and who was the hero that was named for? Well, that she was named for. Navy ships are considered ladies, right?
Yes, sir.
And what did he do?
So Stephen W. Groves was from Maine, and so he enlisted into the Navy Reserve prior to World War II. And at that time, he also became a naval aviator. He was attached to the USS Hornet. I'm pretty sure, yeah, that's the USS Hornet. So what happened is during the Battle of Midway, he was one of the few remaining American aircraft. There wasn't too many at the time there, because of course what happened at Pearl Harbor, the American naval forces were reduced. So they took on a much larger Japanese force. And he was protecting, I think, the Enterprise, the Hornets, and the Yorktown. And he was accredited with like knocking down like 14, kamikaze planes.
Wow.
And so he was taken on and off from the flight decks. Of course, you had to refuel when you're in the dogfights. And eventually, he ran out of fuel, still in a dogfight. He gave what he can. And at the Battle of Midway, which is, we have the airport nearby, and that's where, those pilots and those aviators and those sailors that didn't make it are memorialized at.
Yeah, during the Battle of Midway, our fighter pilots, which was one of the Stephen Groves were flying F-4 Wildcats. Unfortunately, the F-4 Wildcat was not as good as the Japanese Zero, but our people still knocked down a lot of them because our pilots were better.
Yes, sir.
She was a sister ship to the Stark, right?
Yes. Now, the Stark is pretty significant in the world of FFGs, because the Stark was hit by a couple of Iraqi missiles back in '87, May of '87. And you learn that because there's certain things that happen on there that propagated to the rest of the Navy of safety and firefighting. The reason I know a little bit more about that is my chief, when I report to Stephen W. Groves, he was an E5. He was a second class on the Stark when it got hit. His story was he was on the tail end of the flight deck when the missiles came in. And where the missiles came in were all the places that someone like myself, since I worked in electronics, we were called electronic technicians, or ETs, and that's where the missiles hit. Was part of where the ETs worked and where we slept. And so he lost a lot of friends. And so knowing that, it's kind of sticks with me a bit more. He was a good person. I wish I would have stayed in touch with him. Very good mentor. And from there, but going back to the Stark, is that they learned what could be done better. Because you don't know actually what happens till you get hit. You know, we all have a type of reaction, I can do this, I can do that, but they finally realized what happens where missiles, would come in and how the damage they cause, the firefighting, the skills and the bravery that the sailors displayed that day. Right now they're on fire. You lost your friends. My chief was part of, like I said, the ET division. We actually called it combat systems. And the majority of the fatalities, I believe there was 37. I think like 21, 22 fatalities were his friends. So it's one of those things where it's go time. You have to pick yourself together and then got to save the ship. And that's what they did.
Yeah, I'll tell you what, many people don't realize that you build such friendships while you're in, and sometimes it's tough when you have to lose a friend. What does a frigate do?
Well, we jokingly called it a missile catcher. So basically, we're like guard ship. So the more important is like the tenders or the carriers. That's where we would protect. We're in the outer limits of theirs, and anything that comes to them, we would, if any type of combatants, we're supposed to engage. We also had like a towed array system. So we actually were able, we're supposed to be like submarine hunters in a way, where we would actually put a very long microphone underwater, and we would listen. We had some very good guys out there. They were able to detect the different sounds. I don't know if we've ever detected a submarine or not, because that's always classified information. That wasn't my department, but that's what we were designed to do.
Were you with Carrier Task Force?
We did a lot of independent steaming. So eventually when I did my cruises in 92 and 94, we would start off with the task force, with the battle group, but then we were always sent off on our own. So that's when we were doing the embargoes in the Red Sea and also in the Caribbean.
What were your duties aboard? I mean, I know you were working with the radar, but tell us a little bit more about it.
Well, it's not just electronics on the ship. They're not just your specific job. So a ship is a floating city. It's a small town. You have everything from administrative to a police force to security force, an engineering department, water production, electricity production. So when you're underway, you have to be involved in a lot of different things, and also firefighting. I mean, that was like going back to the start. Everyone has to be trained in firefighting. You have to know how to put on your gear, take it off. Where the location of the ship is, so you kind of basically memorize the ship. One of the things that happened with the Stark is that as the ship got, when the missiles hit, things got changed around because of the destruction, steel getting bent out of place. So now we had to learn egress. So now you can actually kind of make your way through the ship almost blindfolded. That's how intimate you had to learn about these things.
And then there's a lot to get through, too.
Yes.
Different watertight doors and that.
Yeah, well, because the watertight doors, of course, are not huge. They're probably about 4 foot by 2.5, and so they're raised off. So we call those the knee knockers. So if you're going too fast, there goes your knee right into those, or your shins. But on the ship, there, like I said, it's a small town, so you have to learn almost everything about it. And so one of the things. I had an officer who was a bit more enthusiastic, if I should say that, than others. But one of the things he would say, if there's time to sleep, there's time to work. And that can also have a negative effect on morale. So it's one of those where you have to learn a lot, you have to be engaged a lot, but at the same time, these other guys become your best friends.
I understand. What's it like being out on the ocean, sailing along with nothing but water around you? Is it a little boring?
No, it's never boring. Like I said, if there's a lot to do on the ship that we have to maintain. We're a 24-hour operation underway. So you also have your maintenance, as me being the maintainer of electronics, and then also watches. So you have to certain things we're watching over,
How long is a watch?
It depends on the size of your crew. So normally, if you have a larger group in your crew, you can have maybe 2 or 3 watch sections, meaning that you can break it down to 8 hours a piece. Or if you have fewer, then it's 12 on, 12 off. And then that 12 off time is when you can do your other type of qualifications, or your rest, or your bathing or sleeping. 12 hours isn't really a long time.
Did you cross the equator on your ship?
No, we never did that. We were always busy.
So you didn't get to do the
no,
ceremony?
We wanted to. So we were in the Red Sea. So the Red Sea, if you go in the southern tip of there, by the Horn of Africa, is Djibouti. And then we've been there a couple of times for Liberty or for a protocol. It's like we're running up the chain of command. Hey, we'd rather go cross the equator than go to another place off the Horn of Africa, because there wasn't, at that time, it wasn't as developed as it is now. So going there was like, okay, there's sand, let's go back in the boat. It's air conditioning.
There is a ceremony in the Navy when you cross the equator where King Neptune comes on board the ship and he sees all the pollywogs. Is that it?
Yes, sir.
And but it's something that most Navy men, they really get the idea that, hey, this shows that I did some sailing.
Yes, I mean, it's a tradition everyone, wants to go through. And like I said, we were enthusiastic. We wanted to be. So the Horn of Africa wasn't that far down a distance from the equator, and we pushed for it. But mission first, party later.
Oh, well. What do you do when you're not on duty, other than sleep?
Yeah, like I said, it was always a lot of work going on, and getting qualifications. Like I said, you have to learn the ship inside and out, and then you also want to do some personal qualifications. Like there was enlisted surface warfare qualification where you got a little bit more in depth of everything that went on, like the engineering space, how the main reduction gear actually turns the propeller, and how our propeller was actually a variable pitched. So our shaft only spun in one direction, but to go in reverse, they changed the pitch of the propellers, and then that would change us going either forward or backwards. So you learn stuff like that. It's not electronics, but it was just interesting to go through, and you just keep digging and digging.
No free time?
Very little. On a frigate, we were always busy, and that's the thing. On the larger ships, you had more people, but because we were like a minimum manned, meaning that we had the least amount out there, it's always work going through there.
You were on the Red Sea for 2 tours, serving on a boarding team, checking for embargoed items at the. What was that like? What was it like boarding another ship?
It was interesting. And my first time. So when we go out there, we have a helo protection. So we do communicate from bridge to bridge of the other ship that what we're about to do, and of the authority we have to do it under. And then our helo would go up and give us air cover, and then we would go over. It probably was we're about a team of 12, and then we cross on a small what's called a rib, rigid hull inflatable boat. So basically, it's a fiberglass hull with the inner tube around it. That gives you an idea what that was. And then we'd transfer, or we'd go from our ship to theirs. At first, it's kind of scary, but then after a while, you kind of run in the same ships again. So you kind of make a slight friendship with some of those crew members. But as we're going up there, we do have a head count. We do have protection from the helo, so it wasn't, as you get comfortable with the process, you kind of, you're not as tense, but you're always alert what's going on.
What were you looking for?
At that time, it varied. We had a manifest of what should be on there. If it wasn't on there, then it's considered contraband. So it was just many different things. Okay, this is bringing over this type of supplies, or this is the type of this cargo that's going in there. And so if we find anything other than that, then that's what we reported to. So it did vary.
And you also supported UN sanctions to Haiti. What did that comprise?
So that was in '93, and that was kind of the same thing. Haiti at the time had political unrest, and that's kind of common for Haiti. I don't want to say that, that's all the time, but back in that day, the I don't know if he was a dictator or the president, because they had a few changeovers at that time, and they just want to make sure, and the Port-au-Prince was one of their main ports. They wanted to make sure nothing was going in or out that would escalate their turmoil. when we were on the ships there, you get to meet some of the citizens of Haiti, and they were all very nice with us. They were friendly. We talked with them because they spoke English as well. I didn't speak French as their language, but it's a shame that countries where the citizens have to pay for someone else's political unrest, and I'm glad that that country's doing well off now.
Yes, I'm glad too. Your ship went into dry dock at Pascagoula, Mississippi. First of all, what's a dry dock and what did you do?
Okay, so dry dock, so after, like anything else, it's maintenance. Any type of vehicle, you're going to need some maintenance. The sea is rough. The salt waters and steel don't always really mix together. You get the rust. You got improvements to make. So dry dock is when we actually take the whole ship out of water. So we pull into like a small port, and it's submerged at first, and then they will pump it out and raise the whole ship out of the water. So at that time we can inspect the propellers or different type of seals, the hull, anything else that's watertight integrity that we need. We have, even under the ship, we do have some electronics to monitor our speed. It's just like a wind speed or something like that. So it's actually not the wind speed, but underneath the ship, as we move forward, there's what's called a pit sword, and it measures our speed. So we got to check for that.
And plus sonar, right?
The sonar, yeah, but that's not where I was in, so they don't let me know about that.
Okay. Now, one of my favorite. How was Navy chow?
I don't know. Well, see, the thing is that each branch is different, and of course, each ship is different. We're on a small ship, so we didn't get the best. We got what was distributed first. We were kind of like the last in line. So it was warm. Was it tasty? Well, before I joined the Navy, I didn't like Tabasco sauce. So right in that time, I was a proud proponent, and I carried so much Tabasco with me. I think if I cut myself, it's going to come out Tabasco.
Excuse me. I understand. You worked at Argonne Laboratories. Tell us about that, if you can.
Yeah, as I said, I did electronics, and so when I worked at Argonne after I got out, so that was in 2001, and as I was at the advanced photon source, and it's going through the interview was so, I relate to almost the things you were telling me about, because that is an accelerator, meaning that they take an electron gun, they build an electron cloud, and then they accelerate it with RF, which is radar type energy. And of course, then they bend it. So back in the day before flat screens, there was the CRTs, cathode ray tubes, and it was basically that. And so I enjoyed it, and it was easy for me to pick up. So and the same thing on the CRT, you have an electron gun, you had an electron cloud. It was manipulated by magnets onto a screen, which was under vacuum. And so I enjoyed working at Argonne. I really miss some of my friends there. I actually talked to them recently. It was a great experience. I was there. Actually, we're going back to the beginning of the segment there. I was there in 2001. I remember the events of September 11th. I was just working on getting my qualifications. So there's a machine for each thing to build it. And I was working on the booster, and I just finished my test. And I remember I got to work that day early because we had a specific allotted of time. And after I finished, one of the physicists comes in and says, "Hey, something happened in World Trade Center." Because at the time, we had a TV in there. We didn't use it during working hours, but we had training videos we had to watch. And then that whole day, it's one of those things where I remember being where I was sitting at.
A day of silence.
Yes, sir. And it's, I think of 9/11, I think of where I was during that day at Argonne.
You spent some time in the reserves. What have you done since you got out?
I enjoyed the reserves. I started off at Forest Park, and eventually up to Great Lakes. At Forest Park, I met a real great group of friends as well. So the same thing there too is that when you go on to AT, your annual training, you get close because you travel with them, you eat with them, you work together, and you get to know these people. And I still consider these people my family. I've been out of reserve since '09, but we still get together. I enjoyed my units. One of my favorite units was actually what this ball cap I'm wearing is called ATG, a float training group. And what I learned there is that I wish they would have learned me when I was in the fleet. So each cycle, like in between, like in the yards, like we're talking about the dry dock, we go out for training, and then it becomes redundant. Like, oh, okay, why am I doing this training again? But then when I was in ATG, it kind of explained it, because those would be the teachers and the evaluators. Oh, the reason you're doing it is because it's a new team. Don't forget, you may be on the ship 3-4 years. The guy next to you is only 1 year. So now you should be his big brother. And it wasn't explained like that to us on active duty, but then it all clicked. It made sense. And that's probably, I kind of wear my hat here, because that unit made the reserves and all other things in the Navy make sense. Like 10 years too late, but that's okay.
You're working with any veterans organizations?
Well, after I got out, after I left the reserves, you still have that drive. You want to work with other vets. Your friends, you build them together, and you get together, and it happens a lot. I actually did a lot of different veterans groups. Of course, through those groups I met you. Thank you, sir.
Oh.
And then, but I was with a group called Chicago Veterans, that started up in about 2012, 2013, and it was one of those things where we wanted to be to connect all other veteran groups. You didn't have to be a certain rank or a certain branch or a certain era. It was just anybody you wanted to be, just come on out. One of the different things with that group is that most of the established groups had a post or location. They would say, hey, come to us. With Chicago Veterans at that time was, hey, we're coming out to you. So we traveled different locations throughout the city, and just to pull veterans out. One of the things that that happened with me, and I think with most vets, is after you get out, you kind of isolate yourself in certain ways, because we really can't connect with civilians about just the terminology. Some of the experiences may, connect, but the terminology and the different type of things that did happen and that was very stressful. So, but as veterans, we kind of hide in a way. So we were doing that on purpose to pull them out of their shell. Hey, come on out, because if you leave someone alone too long that might have some negative thoughts, it's not going to be a positive.
I'm going to ask you something.
Yes, sir.
How do you feel, you personally, about being a vet?
I'm proud of being a veteran. I've got my American flag in front of my house every day. I have it lit up. I drive a Jeep Wrangler. I'm proud to have my military plates on that. It's because I went out there, I served. I know I could bring a little bit more to the table than the average person. And I don't do that to say, hey, look at me. But it's also, I wear some of my military gear to say, hey, I'm a vet. And it makes it easier for someone else to come and talk to me. As the different branches, we have our brother rivalry, if you want to call it that. We always joke with each other. So if you see someone else, say, hey, what about you? Or what about that? So, and it's just that camaraderie, that just wearing a ball cap or a shirt that says one thing or another, or even if it's Popeye on or something like that, yeah, we're gonna give each other a little ribbon.
Yeah, I understand. I want to thank you for being my guest, and thank you for your service. Welcome back, and fair skies and calm seas.
Thank you, sir.
I'd like to read one of my letters that I get over the years. Over 20 years, I got quite a few letters from different units, and I think that I'd like you people to hear what they say to us. This one's from July 3rd, 2010. Dear Jim, I'm a Marine with the 2nd and 6th Marines, and we just arrived in Camp Dwyer in Afghanistan. We're getting ready to replace the 1st of the 6th Marines in Marha. Me and my buddy went to the chapel to get some comfort items we didn't bring with us. I found almost everything anybody could want. I asked the chaplain where everything came from, and he said that it was donated. I was proud to see how many Americans support us over here. I wanted to write back and say thanks. I asked for a list of addresses, and the chaplain printed out a list of the top 10 supporting units, and Kruse's Krew was on it. It is an honor serving those that support us. Thank you again. You'll be in our minds and hearts. Lance Corporal Alwyn, United States Marine Corps, Semper Fi. And I just received this one from Iraq just lately. Mr. Kruse, thank you for the goodies you sent. These items provide us entertainment as well as a taste of America. We appreciate your thoughtfulness, and God bless. 386th EMDS, John Reagan, Captain, U.S. Air Force. I don't get a lot of mail from the units we support, but that's okay. I know they're busy defending us, and they have much more important things to do. But I know that what we're doing, the things that we're sending, is important to them, and it brings them a little bit of America and home. It is truly an honor to serve such men and women who stand on guard for us and put their lives on the line. I would welcome any of your heroes who have deployed overseas. Send us their names and deployed addresses. We will support them as if they were our own. Also, a list of drop-off points and donations will be listed at the end of the show, and my email address. Your men and women enjoy our support. I would be honored to support your heroes and their teams. Also, Halloween is coming, and when those trick-or-treaters are gone and you have all that candy left, give it to us, and we'll send it to our men and women deployed. And we just put them in those boxes, and we'll put them in arms. Thank you all for seeing this show. I hope the information and the remembrance of our warriors helps you to understand what we did. We will be doing a show every month here on PHTV4, interviewing veterans and organizations that help the veterans. I thank you for watching, and I hope to welcome you back again next month. Honor and respect.